What is going on, everybody? I hit the wrong button there, and there was nothing for a second. Hey, Vision, what's going on? Uh, yeah, it should be a relatively quiet week as of right now. Good morning. Oh, good morning. Good afternoon. Good Lord. Dan, Joe, KP Heathen, welcome. Little Miss Prepper, hello. Wait, who else do we have here? Oh, no, that's Joe again. Hey, Scott, welcome. Mechabus. Good to see you, my Renaissance grandma. Yeah, for sure. And there's Vision just zipped by me again. Canadian, how you doing? And I think I got everyone. If I missed you, my apologies. Hope everyone's doing well. This was finally a kind of a low key weekend for us. I got up Saturday morning after I hit the farmers markets and all that. I did my, y'all probably saw my premiere Saturday morning. And by Saturday afternoon, I was done. I was just like, we made an 800-mile road trip last weekend and went to work Monday, like right away. And then this is like the first weekend where we actually slept an extra hour. And I was like, oh man, that I feel so much better right now. Tweaker snuck up on me whilst running errands. Not, they will not make that mistake again soon. Yeah, they have no logic, Joe. They just do things, they just like blah, 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 and then things happen. So, um, but yeah, it's a low key weekend. Actually, walking around the house, looking at larger things, trying to determine, am I missing anything? Do I need to get something? But I'm not overly trying to kill myself. I don't have that energy this weekend, but it doesn't mean I don't watch what needs to be done. I kind of went around, took care of a few things in the house. That's one of the bad things when you travel is when you're somewhere else, there are things in the house that don't get done. And so those things had to get taken care of today. But not a bad weekend. I hope all of y'all are having a good weekend. Or at least as good as can be expected. I gotta tell you though, the the videos of New York City or New York City when the smoke from Canada hit the city, it was just apocalyptic. Like, I wish I had been there to take video footage because it was so freaking cool. It's raining there, that's a good thing. Rain is always good, unless it's like the hurricanes in Houston and New Orleans where it's like 52 inches. That's a bit too much, but normal regular rain is good. Hey, independent, what's going on? I'm doing meal prep here. Been too much pain to do much. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, that those kind of injuries really, it's really hard to get around when you injure yourself like that. You can't, if you injure a hand or a foot, you can kind of finagle certain ways of doing things, but anything in like the middle of your body, it just really, it's tough, man. Um Regular rain as opposed to zombie rain or death rain or something like, I say that jokingly, Trent, and like 2 weeks from now you're going to turn on the news and they'll be in zombie rain has occurred, and we'll be like, really, Pete, you had to go and say it on a live stream and now it's happening. uh, it would happen to one of us too. It wouldn't, happen to anyone else. So I did want to set one thing to rest because on TikTok and Instagram there was a video going around saying that when you burn ammonium nitrate, it turns orange, and then they bring on the zombies. What's going on, Hudson? Glad you could join me, brother. Um, it turns orange, and that's why the sky is orange. Actually, I can say it. Well, if you detonate it, it's a white cloud, which is pretty much when I see, like, if you look at the footage from the Boston Marathon attack, the Zarnev brothers, or some of the other incidents, you see that big white cloud. That's typically ammonium nitrate based, as opposed to petroleum based like RDX, HMX. The more commercial and military explosives tend to have a black smoke. And then eventually it becomes black because it catches other things catch fire, and then you have all sorts of stuff. But the black smoke is more indicative of a petrochemical basis as opposed to a ammonium nitrate. And granted, you use natural gas to make ammonium nitrate, but it's a much cleaner substance. By itself, it won't burn. So if it were used in any detonating chain, it would be a white smoke. However, and I can say this because I was actually a blaster for 7 years and then sold explosives for another three. So yeah, I've actually dealt with them. But that being said, it doesn't mean you couldn't burn it with another substance. So for those of you who've heard that theory going around, ammonium nitrate needs an oxidizer. If you just take a pile of this stuff and like throw a match in it, it's not really going to do much. You need to mix it in something. Uh, right. So the Syrian plant, and correct, it would be Anfo. Yeah, if it needs, but it needs an oxidizer in order to do it. And yeah, typically, and that's a large amount, the 60,000 pounds. But in any case, yeah, the the fertilizer plant's explosions, typically what we wind up having happen there, you have the ammonium nitrate, and then you have some kind of other oxidizer, like there's a tank of gas or propane or something, and then somebody screws up and creates an ignition source. And now you have the three legs of the stool, and, and there it goes. And that's what happened in West, the fertilizer plant here in Texas. You know what, like 8 years ago. Uh, yeah, so you have to you have to be there's a certain thing that needs to uh, occur before that happens. So I've heard the orange, but I've seen other things that it may or may not, depends on the oxidizer. Now, where the orange came from, I don't know. Uh, the dirt in that part of the world has a high uh, not bauxite and not barite. Crap. Basically, it has an iron ore content in it. So if you have a massive fire that's picking up dust and then throwing it into the atmosphere, that might do it. Either way, it's kind of ugly. So, but yeah, in any case, and you guys may not want to put all that in the chat so they don't flag all of us. But yeah, but just the same, it's one of those things that you hear a lot of speculation on. And there's a chemist in my team who I do need to ask, okay, if what now, that being said, you have such a massive set of fires, just the updraft from the fire will and Joe's already on list. Just the updraft from the fires will pick up pretty much anything that's in its way and then dump it on someone else somewhere else. So Uh, that being said, for those of you on the East Coast, do you have clear air now? Because that was really bizarre to witness. I mean, it straight up looked apocalyptic. The only thing I saw that was cooler than that was the when all the lights went out in Manhattan like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and the kids at NYU were running up and down. It just looked like zombie apocalypse. So let me see if I can get a picture of that because this was just a phenomenal thing to watch. Give me just a second here while why do I get this crapola? Bear with me just a second here, folks. There's better up there. Yeah. And you know what? This is a good lesson learned on that kind of situation is sometimes you may have to take steps. Let me pause this video. Let me share this with you guys. And bear with me just a second. I got a few too many screens here. So let me know if you can hear the audio from this.
It's going to be at certain times of the day. Why is this so tough to tell?
Well, first of all, the atmosphere is very chaotic. You have a lot of little eddies, and also what happens is the smoke is
Can you hear
rising
that?
up in the atmosphere. You're getting that smoke transported by the wind aloft. The question is how much of the smoke mixes back down to the surface. In this case, we have winds from the surface all
Oh,
the way up into the upper
absolutely.
levels of the atmosphere, coming in from the north, almost acting as a pipeline from these fires over Quebec and sending them in our direction. And I'm really starting to get concerned, Mike, about what happens later on today, because this is all basically converging over upstate New York, and we're getting reports of hazardous air quality up in the Syracuse area. Again, that air quality alert in effect right through, actually, this was extended now. It just extended right through midnight tomorrow night, so Friday, 12 a.m. We have unhealthy air quality across the board in the tri-state area. So that means, as the mayor and the city's doctor were saying, stay indoors if you can, and if you get to be outside, definitely limit strenuous activities. But we also have an area of downright hazardous air quality almost off of our scale here. It's not just very unhealthy, it's downright hazardous up in the Syracuse area, extending all the way down to about Binghamton. And the guidance for hazardous air quality is to stay indoors, period. Don't go outside at all. So if we get this plume of smoke in our area later on today, it could definitely become more dangerous than what we dealt with yesterday. In our near surface smoke futurecast, which indicates the smoke near the ground, which is really impacting our air quality, is showing that plume of smoke heading in our direction. You see by 2 p.m., these purple colors getting into the parts of the Poconos and eastern parts of Pennsylvania, maybe western parts of New Jersey. And that gets down into the city and much of the Garden State as we head toward dinner time. So it could be a repeat of yesterday, or maybe even worse as we head into late today and early tonight. This may become a little bit more diffuse as we head into the day on Thursday, but this goes to show you how difficult it is to predict where the smoke is going to be. So initially tomorrow, we have kind of a north wind. Maybe the smoke is getting a little bit more diffuse, some cleaner air trying to come in from the Hudson Valley. But then you get a little bit of a sea breeze.
Now, what I found interesting there is the timing of the actual fire. It was just before this front came through, and I'm trying to find the satellite because Hudson just brought up something that I think we've all been watching. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on, here we go. The screen, bear with me just a second here. All right, so this is a satellite view. Let me see. So can you guys see this? Now watch this here. So I guess the fire started up here. Watch how they start though. So it goes into the evening, and there's no audio, by the way. And the next day, and it's just weird how all of a sudden it seems to have started at the nighttime, didn't it? That that's just super suspicious. When you have isolated pockets of fire that suddenly have the same thing all in one time, that's kind of concerning. Uh, hey, what's going on, the Watchman? Hello, hello, Angie. Uh, who else? Have a respirator or can't be destroyed. Oh wow. Okay, I did not know that. Well, Joe, the New York air, upstate New York has been actually really good quality for years because they did do a good job on the environmental stuff, which is one thing I'll give credit for. But you know, the city is because of all the people has always had its challenges. But like that, those fires, the way they started, so spread out, all at the same time. And Hudson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe. Oh yeah, I'm going to touch on that here in a minute, actually, Watchman. Uh, but hey, Sister Marie, what's going on? But the honestly, the way those fires started all at once across two provinces, in the course of what, 12 hours. That usually you'll get a front moves through, they have a bunch of lightning, and you kind of know it's coming. It's like, oh, we're going to have a bunch of lightning strikes. The ground is dry. We'll get a fire. But this was weird. Hey, Mad Shad, what's going on? Howdy. So yeah, it's just been. Let me see if I can find. Uh, if I can find the satellite time lapse. Yeah, here we go. I found it. All right, hold on just a second. I thought that other video would have it, but it didn't. So let me back up here and I'm going to share this with you guys. But again, this is an example, whether it was natural or man made, when you might wind up in a bind, like you might have to leave. So can you guys see that? Yeah, okay. There's no audio to my knowledge on this puppy. So let me. You see how that all started at once? Look at that. It's down here and it's up here. And it may not look like a lot of distance, but that's actually. But there's no storm. It's not like, oh, a front went through and you had a bunch of lightning. And then you have, and there's perfect timing as that wind comes through this circular pattern here. It's just playing the same thing over and over. But you see now it's starting over here. Look at that. Like that's just really weird, guys. That's super stuff. Sus. Hey, what's up, 300? Actually, we were talking about that earlier. It depends on your oxidizer. If it's used in a detonating device, it's actually burns white. But my concern is what else did they set fire to during all those fires? I mean, they burned. See, and that's the thing, Sherry. So, and you guys have been having rain out there too, like regularly. It's not like you've had a super dry season because we're getting all sorts of rain across the U.S. for the last month. It's, yeah, there's something sus. So, truck blew up. Yeah, I got a video clip for that one too, guys. So, yeah, you guys are noticing all this weirdness then? It's not just me, right? We'll go to the aliens because I think the aliens is freaking hilarious. But it's also these guys genuinely got scared. And what's concerning is this one should have audio, guys. So let me know if you can or cannot hear it. Uh, I will tell you this, there were multiple police dash cams and body cams that saw the object. So I'm going to play this. Let me know if you have no audio on this one.
Southern Nevada is abuzz tonight with stories about the crash of an unknown object and the alleged sighting of strange creatures in the backyard of a Northwest Valley home.
So it was last night that 8 News Now investigator David Charnes reported about how Metro Police responded back on May 1st after receiving a strange call from a very frightened family. Well, our report generated a global response, and now piecing together the sequence of events has been kind of tricky, in part because the primary witnesses have been almost as elusive as the beings they say they encountered. Chief Investigator George Knapp is as perplexed as the rest of us, George.
As you know, this is not our first UFO rodeo. We first heard about the incident in early May via the Metro Police grapevine. The incident has a lot in common with other bizarre cases from around the world: an alleged crash, strange beings, and bits and pieces that don't make sense. But the police took this seriously, and so do we. Just before midnight on April 30th, skywatchers across several western states saw a bright fireball streak through the heavens. A police officer working in the Northwest Valley caught a glimpse of the colorful object on his body cam. At nearly the same time, a Ring camera in the area recorded a strange noise and what sounds like a crash. One family living in a ranch-style home had a much closer view of the object. Two brothers and their father were working on a vehicle in their yard when they caught a glimpse of a sparkly object as it came crashing down, then were hit by what they describe as a shock wave. One of the witnesses, a young man named Angel, has stated when the brothers looked into the yard where the object landed, that spot was obscured and blurry, as if by unknown form of camouflage. What they saw next prompted a frantic call to 911.
So there's two people or two subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like
Okay.
8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes,
Okay.
like I can't explain it, and big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
8 News Now investigators have spoken with family members multiple times in the past 4 weeks, but each of the 3 times we accepted their invitation to do an interview, they didn't answer the door or their phone. These are some of the claims they've made in other public forums. Multiple family members backed up the story in an initial police report we obtained. Angel says they heard the patter of multiple feet in the yard. They later heard footsteps on their roof. They saw one of the 8-foot-tall creatures climb behind the controls of a large front loader stored in the yard as if trying to engage it. He got a good look at one of the creatures, he said, a greenish-grayish being with large eyes and long legs. He says he could hear its deep breaths, and when he locked eyes, he was, in essence, frozen in place, couldn't move. In the middle of the yard where the object had crashed, then vanished, a circular impression was left in the soil.
Okay, where is this on your property?
Metro sources say the police dispatcher initially wondered whether to send a crisis intervention team to help the troubled witness, but then took the incident seriously. 2 officers arrived 38 minutes after the call, and by then had heard from other officers. They proceeded cautiously and managed some nervous laughs.
I ain't dealing with that.
A few days later, the family says 2 Metro sergeants returned to the scene to ask follow-up questions. The family says they also saw men in suits and sunglasses driving in a car with government plates cruising slowly past the house
The men in
the
black showed
following
up.
days. Nellis and Creech have denied any interest or involvement with the incident. Metro has indicated they believe the family that something crashed in their yard. But what?
You mentioned, George, in that piece that, they were frozen because so many people have been critical of, like, why didn't they get their phone out? Why didn't they shoot the video? Do we know if there's even any video of this incident?
Yes and no. So there's a surveillance camera in the backyard. The property owner keeps that because he's got a lot of expensive equipment there. What we were told is that at the moment this thing comes down and crash, this camera went out, and it was out for a couple of minutes. When it came back on, the object was gone, but the circle was there. We've been told by Angel in multiple phone conversations that he shot video of the creatures. We haven't seen it, and we don't know anybody else who's seen it yet, so maybe he'll release it at some point.
It's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, all over.
All right, George, thanks
Right.
for that.
So that was interesting, and you heard the audio of that thing landing. It sounded like a helicopter coming in, like um, the few audios I've heard of meteorites landing, they sound like a rocket. It's like they'll break the sound barrier. If you look at the footage from Australia and a couple other places, they break the sound barrier when they come through the atmosphere, and you hear that crack, that big boom, and then they're gone, and then they hit the ground, and you get thump. But not that. That almost sounds like something was catching the atmosphere, it was catching air as it was landing. Really weird. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's and welcome, Textlala. Yeah, it. At least the older ones never tried computer eyes yet. Hey, Wolf, what's going on, Wolfang? Welcome, welcome. No, or a forklift. I wouldn't recommend it though. Uh, it's weird. It's definitely sus. Hypothetically, you could make the argument, yeah, there could be other things in the universe. I mean, it would be silly not to think that, but um, whoever was on the phone, they were very convinced that they saw the damn chupacabra or something in his yard. And I don't know if you saw the facility. They have a house, and then they have their business behind. So supposedly, on another report, they said they do have cameras because they have like backhoes, forklifts. They have a flatbed with a dually. They have some. They do some kind of landscaping or construction. So they have some equipment in that fenced area that they're trying to protect. So they had cameras, but you get a bit of the sound, and they said when the impact happened, the cameras were gone, and they didn't flicker back on until minutes later. So who knows? Isn't this the way the movie Sign started? Like there were little weird things, something in the sky, something crashed over here, 10-foot dudes, and then all of a sudden, pandemonium breaks out. So who knows? What's up, Ghetto? Welcome, welcome. Now that's an interesting point. So somebody tried to line up, and I wish I could find the video. Somebody tried to line up the geological fault lines to the fires because there is a precedent for what you've said. And I deal with geology and geophysics people pretty much daily. And there is a precedent that in certain fault lines you do get steam escapes. Depends on the nature of the fault line. If you have discontinuities as opposed to a more stratigraphic environment, and then the faulting and how the traps are formed, you could wind up with very hot liquid or something coming to surface, which then begs the question: why are these relatively dormant faults suddenly active? Keep in mind there was an earthquake in New York City not what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. It was a mild one. Hudson, correct me if I'm wrong there. Uh, get your cups of water. Thank you. Yes, I did see one of his. I haven't seen that one though. Alien basketball team coming off. You know what? Vegas should have, when they got their basketball team, they should have just called them the Area 51s or something. And their logo's a little alien with a basketball, man. That would have been awesome. I absolutely would have bought that jersey. I think that's how every fire in the Pacific Northwest starts with lightning or stupidity or a combination thereof. Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. So yeah, it's definitely interesting the way that happened. Now, Macabus, you were talking about the highway. So let's bring that one up because I did have that one on my roster to discuss. Let's see. And by the way, I have actually seen this happen in Houston and in New Orleans. Let me see if we can get this screen. You guys, let me make sure you can see the screen. Let me know if you can hear the audio on this one, folks. Bloop. Oh, it's no audio. It's really just the helicopter. So I don't remember what this particular truck was carrying, but structurally speaking, when you build that kind of bridge, right, it's concrete with steel on the internals. Hold on, that was it's concrete with the steel rebar through it, or reinforced concrete. Um, in a trapped environment, when the trucks are burning, that chemical, whatever it is, if it's the right chemical, you get an amazingly hot fire. And all it does, it doesn't melt the concrete. It just needs to weaken it enough in certain spots for the overall structure to no longer be able to hold up its own weight. And I've seen this happen in Houston where a massive fire actually started to crumble one of the vertical supports purely on the basis it just weakened the structure of the concrete metal. So Mars Attack, they were beaten. I remember that. And then their heads blew up. That was kind of funny. Couldn't comment to that one, but I have seen those accidents previously. No, there was no audio. It was just like the helicopter sound in the background. Uh, Joan Rivers. You could put Joan Rivers. That would make my head explode. I'd probably run away too. So yeah, That one, that Pennsylvania, or the that overpass, that has happened before. I've seen it. I've actually driven past where it's happened, and so I wasn't involved in any of the that particular work. But hey, Tracy, welcome. Hey, Love and Life, welcome. But going past that incident, definitely made me aware of how a concentrated fire over a certain area of any kind of structure, you don't need to melt it. You just need to weaken it enough so that whatever the weight is supporting becomes too much and it fails. And you only need one fail point, right? Because if you have one fail point, it's going to put additional stresses on another, and then you get that cascading effect. So yeah, so that was interesting, and that sucks because I-95 is a major thoroughfare. And it seems like the East Coast got its butt kicked this week between the I-95 thing and the smoke coming down from Canada. It was just kicking people's butts and making everyone miserable. So, okay, Tracy, be safe when you're driving. The Canadian fires, now they're robbing away our fire trucks, so we won't have any. Well, they're probably, fire departments are pretty much underfunded right now anyway, all over the place. So it's not a good deal. Uh, one other news clip I wanted to share with you guys, which was here it is. So this one, the banks, what they're planning to do. So I'm hearing mixed signals. Didn't seem to slow down the pride of it. No, it did not. That's an interesting point there too. Hold on. Hear about the crack on Yellowstone. Are you referring to a geological crack or a crackhead? Because you guys make jokes and sometimes you actually mean the crackhead, not the crack. Hey, take care, local prepper. I appreciate you. Thanks for hopping in, man. Be rabid dolphins. Sharks with lasers, man, not rabid dolphins. This point, it's going to, yeah, no kidding. Do you want to send this anywhere, send anywhere, anything anywhere? At this point, it's going to take it away from, yeah, probably. Okay, see, that's a concerning spot because that's where the subsurface magma is very close to the surface. Hence why you have Old Faithful and the other geysers. There's a heating element there. Um, the energy companies were looking at trying to make geothermal wells near that, right, where you pour water down, the natural heat of the earth creates steam that comes up and runs a generator, right? And it's almost perfectly clean once you've drilled it. But everyone's afraid to drill near that because someone's going to screw up and poke a hole somewhere, and then everything is going to go sideways. So under my barbecue pit. But actually, if you make a really, really hot fire in a fire pit, you'll warp the metal, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to in a fire pit, but it's the same principle. If you have a massive fire, and even if you don't have an explosion with a shock wave, but enough fire to weaken certain components of a structure, it's going to come down. Yeah, no kidding. So I've heard about that, and I'm trying to find out why they want to do that. I've heard different stories, and I may need to come back to that one. Now, I will tell you, in the Gulf of Mexico, the deepest well I dealt with was 22,000 feet from surface minus 1,500 foot of water. So it was so deep you had to have a floating drilling rig, basically a drill ship. You couldn't be on a platform because you couldn't make legs that long. Uh, but yeah, that's so long, and thanks for all the fish. That's terrible. Just head over to Wyoming. I'm right in the middle of Yellowstone caldera. Oh yeah, that's right. You are up there. That's not bueno. So yeah, that's something. And by the way, that to 300's point, the if that thing suddenly causes an issue, that's going to be a global issue. It's not going to be, oh well, the U.S. is screwed. No, everyone is screwed because you all look at the jet stream. It goes right over that area. It's going to pick up whatever comes in the air, and there go the dogs are fighting over there, and then carry whatever it is all across the rest of the world. So all the fun is get shared with everybody. Um, you weren't picked up by there by your crime. Ooh, that I do not know. Shoot. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of weird things going on. The fire thing bugs the crap out of me. And again, to the point about the fires in Canada, not all the fires lined up with all the fault lines. So they can't say with certainty that it was a fault related issue that may have perpetuated some kind of heating and then fire. In some cases, yes, but not in all. So they're not sure if they didn't map the fault lines right geologically or if something else happened. And again, it's really hard to, I mean, all of us, we get bits and pieces from media that's been filtered through God knows what. So it's hard for us to speculate exactly what's happening. But in any case, here's another one, and I'm not sure what to make of this one, but they're saying, so I'm hearing one group of analysts are saying the Feds are going to stop raising interest rates and give it a few months to see the effect. Others are saying no, they're going to continue. And so Wall Street's kind of on this fence. They don't know which way to go because they don't know, a half a percent to us is a pain in the ass, but a half a percent when you're dealing with $1 billion company is a huge amount of money. So trying to work out of the East Coast would be like Walking Dead, Jungle Zombie. Yeah. Hey, Johnny Preps, what's going on? Yeah. And even if not, just the smoke and debris, the ash. Look at Pompeii, and that was a localized event. That would cause, not that it would cover the whole universe or anything, but it would cause massive problems everywhere. I want to share this one with you because I thought this one was relevant on the interest rates. So let's see.
Chief Investment Officer.
Hold on.
For insight, let's go
Let me know if you can hear the audio on this one.
to our featured guest of the morning. He's Greg Taylor, Chief Investment Officer at Purpose Investments. Greg, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
There's lots to talk about here. Let's jump in. You believe that the next meeting of the Fed is in fact live and that the chances of another Fed rate increase are perhaps more real than they were before the Bank of Canada made its move yesterday.
Yeah, the central bank governors in the U.S. and other Fed speakers have, in the last few weeks, been very adamant saying that they're on pause right now and trying to signal a pause. And messaging has been very important for this Fed. But I think they can't really ignore that inflation hasn't gone away. The stock market in the U.S. is basically back to highs. So if they're going to signal another hike, why don't you do it now? And I think that's something that's more on the table than I think the bond market is pricing in. The bond market is pricing in no hike for June and then a hike in July. And to me, it doesn't make sense to wait. They might as well do it. And I think when you look at what the Bank of Canada and the Reserve Bank of Australia did in the last week, I think it signals that central banks globally are looking at continuing this fight against inflation.
And crucially, we will get U.S. consumer price index numbers the day before the Fed makes this decision. How influential could that be? I'll tell viewers in just a second what the consensus call is. Economists polled by Bloomberg believe that U.S. inflation or the consumer price index growth will come in at an annualized pace of 4.2% in May. That would be a substantial drop off from April's 4.9% number.
It is, and that's a good news story. So what we've got is inflation did seem to peak out last summer when we had those 8 to 9 readings, and we pulled back to the 4. But the target's still 2, and normally central bankers have their policy 2% higher than the rate of CPI. So we're still well off of those targets, and I think the battle's well from over. And when you're looking at some of the economic data, things are still going pretty well. So if your mandate is to battle inflation, I don't think it should be a surprise to see central bankers continue their hiking method right now. They could go with a bit of a pause, and maybe they will follow the Bank of Canada's path. The Bank of Canada did pause a few meetings ago, and then they they've been waiting in data dependent, and the data didn't come in their favor. So we could see a pause in June, but it definitely means that hikes are still on the table for the balance of the year.
One of the Bank of Canada's options yesterday was a so-called hawkish pause, to pause, but to point to pretty bluntly to a likely increase in July. Why do you think the Bank of Canada did not pursue that path?
Well, I think it's also something that when it's out there, might as well just do it. They've been basically the bond market and everyone's expecting that they would hike in July. So instead of just waiting for July and maybe have people rush in and put mortgages on and say, well, maybe they're not going to do it, and then maybe just get it on the table and see what happens. It could also be from a currency point of view that if you do think the Fed is going to do something, get ahead of it and try and maintain the Canadian dollar.
And what does the Fed's the possibility of a hike from the Fed mean to equity markets? Equity markets were very much warming up to this idea of a pause from the Fed, and perhaps in the most optimistic scenario, an end to the Fed rate hikes.
Well, I think it's adding a degree of risk to the equity markets, and looking at the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq in the U.S., that's become a really very dangerous and risky index because it's become so concentrated. Going back to the days of the dot-com crisis, we haven't seen levels of this concentration from the top 5 names. And all of those top 5 names are technology stocks, which are incredibly tied to interest rate policies. So the markets did get a sense that coming out of the regional bank crisis, that rates were going to stay lower for longer, or the pause was going to be here. And I think now that the banks crisis has seemed to stabilize, that I think it's a live meeting again, potential for more hikes, and that could be a surprise for markets, and markets don't like being surprised.
And we'll talk in our next segment about Greg's thoughts on the tech stocks and where he thinks investors might go in as alternatives to the tech sector. Let's talk about what this means to Canadian borrowers and perhaps the Canadian real estate market. And by this, I mean the Bank of Canada's hike yesterday.
Well, it's definitely mandated and looking at going after the borrowers, that there's been too much risk in the system. There's still a high degree of lending. And then we look at some of the housing data that came out in the last few weeks, it's been pretty strong. And I think the mandate of the Bank of Canada is to try and clamp down some of this speculative access and trying to take prices down. And we haven't really seen that yet. So I think that's why they went yesterday with the hike. And it probably means the next meeting's live too for the Bank of Canada, because they do need to be data dependent and see the data come down. So it could be something that will take a bit of the wind out of the housing market, but they also don't want to play the balancing act. They don't want to crash the economy. They don't want to have unemployment spike, and they don't want to blow up the housing market. So it's walking the line of getting prices back under control, so it's better for everyone, and then but not destroying the economy at the same time.
Do you believe the Bank of Canada can engineer the so-called soft landing, a no recession scenario?
Oh, well, it's one of these things that everyone hopes for, and we'll see if we can actually do it. There's a lot of moving parts, and Canada being a smaller economy dependent on international trade, there's even more moving parts. So I think that depends if the U.S. economy can engineer a soft landing, and if they can, then there's probably a decent chance we do have one, and things are going pretty well right now. So it's really get that inflation number down.
Let's finish with what brief comments on what this means to the Canadian banks. They boosted their prime lending rates yesterday, as we would expect, in lockstep with the Bank of Canada.
Well, it's something that Canadian banks have to do, but it's probably going to, again, slow down some lending for the banks. And the banks just went through a quarterly reporting season that wasn't really that strong. So you have to wonder if this is going to be good for the banks or not. They have to follow along with the policy and interest rates, but it's probably going to slow down demand growth for loans. And if there's any risk to the housing market, that's a concern for them.
Treat yourself.
All righty. There we go. Definitely, it's hard for banks and investors and people trying to buy houses. I actually had a coworker is expecting another baby, and he said, they were looking at going from a 3-bedroom. They have the master, they have 2 girls who are older, and then they have the baby, and they're a young one, and then they're expecting another one, and they're like, well, we were going to look for another bedroom. And he said, I looked in town, and he said it makes more sense to spend the money and build out my house or enclose my patio and make it into an office so the kids can have a bedroom that way than to even approach buying a house right now. He said it just was absolutely absurd. The interest rates, he said he'd be paying for years and years before he was able to pay more principal than interest. He's a lot of people are delaying car prices, used and new. It's just out of this world, absolutely insane. has his economy cliches down. Oh yeah, he was spitting them out like he was doing good. When your friend, it's yeah, I can't even. He was throwing them out. Basically, it was a lot of double speak on what the banks think they're going to do. So, uh, Joe, I'm a pro. We're watching it now. That's interesting. Actually, The Watchmen. I've seen people speak about that they're this this alien thing is either a leadership deliberate thing or it's something greater and not extraterrestrial but more supernatural, and I'm still digging into some of that because some of the historical context a few of these speakers have is super interesting. It's not like, oh, there's something scary. No, they're actually like, when this happened in history and this happened and this happened and this is what I think happened and why all these things occurred, and it makes you think, if nothing else. So let's see. Oh, that's yeah. Well, I saw you, but I wasn't sure if I saw you, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna say hi anyway, just to make sure I said hi. But yeah, it's been weird. It's definitely been a weird one. So for my movie poll, let's see what you guys came up with. Um, Actually, this is funny. So hold on, let me throw that in the chat so it stays on the other platforms too. So you guys are about 50-50 between World War Z or Geostorm, and then something else. Book of Eli. I could see that. Well, that would happen after the Geostorm. So, live ad, the dude's economy cliches down. No, I think they want to crash the economy. That I do get. So yeah, it's and then 27% said something else. So what was the something else you guys were thinking of? I'm just super curious, like what you guys had in your minds there. But in any case, folks, yeah, this is the road. I could see the road. I could see the road. And you think about it, um, and Texlala, it could be another hoax to distract us, or to set up some kind of narrative. I mean, we could, yeah, we can all put on our tinfoil hats and go right down that. I really haven't done a big conspiracy live in a while. I need to do that because that would be a lot of fun. But I think the road and the Book of Eli would happen after something else like War Games, where AI, and actually, you think about it, the old movie War Games, from when was that, 1984, 83? That movie was actually the first of the new generation or the more current AI has gone amok stuff. So, Idiocracy, I could definitely see Idiocracy. Yeah, that would be terrible. Well, folks, shoot, we're rolling in just about an hour right now. So I just thought I'd bring up some of these weird things going on. I just thought they were really cool to consider. Yeah, shall we play a game? Oh, for the record, for those of you who are old school gamers, um, I got a gift from one of my kids, and it looks like a little Pac-Man with a controller and two buttons, like the old Atari. The old Atari had one button, but anyway, but it's in the shape of a Pac-Man and it has the joystick, two buttons, and it literally has all the Pac-Mans, all the Dig Dugs, all the Galagas, Centipede, like all the classic Ataris, and the thing's this big. Do you remember how many stupid cassettes we had as kids and that thing? And you had to blow out the cassette so dust wouldn't get in there or else it wouldn't work. Hey, Frank Short, welcome. So, yeah, I'm going to try to party on. I'm going to start cooking here in a minute. But yeah, so I actually got one of those and I was playing Dig Dug earlier. So I don't know, I'll do a Dig Dug live. I hadn't played that in forever. And I dropped the rock on the little guys and on myself. So my little guy got squished too. So clearly I've forgotten how to play the game. Galaga I kicked butt at. And Pac Man, I forgot the pattern years ago. So I'm going to have to go and figure it out again. But anyway, yeah, all those Atari games, like it was about a dozen of them. in this thing that's about that big, shaped like a Pac-Man. And I'm sure they could have made it smaller, but that was kind of made it funny. Uh, but yeah, Dig Dug. It has pole position, Dig Dug, Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man. It does not have Donkey Kong because that would have been a Nintendo, not an Atari. I gotta look and see. I'll take a picture of the screen later and put it up there. Be all Nope. Actually, Galaga. Yes, it has Galaga. I did not have Donkey Kong. I was quite sad about that. Uh, but yeah, C16 Commodore. Oh God, I remember the keyboard games. Gone. That's. I'm glad to know some of you have my reminiscence of this stuff because I'm like, this is so cool. Of course, when I turned it on, it goes, bloop, bloop, and of course, all the dogs came in. They were looking around like, what the hell was that? They've never heard that sound before. So, no, for sure. But anyway, guys and girls, you guys be safe out there. And to the Watchman's point, there is a lot of weird stuff going on. Remember, a fire, whether it was man-made or natural or zombies or aliens or whatever, if it gets to your house, you're gonna have to leave. So be sure to plan that. Even if you don't have a sitting bug out bag, be able to know where the important stuff is so that you can. So if you don't do the bug out bag thing, because a lot of people don't, because it may not be practical for them, at the very least, you can say, I can be out my door with everything important to me in 30 minutes. And I mean, obviously, if they drop a nuke on your head, you're kind of hosed anyway. But I'm talking in reality, there's a fire and they're starting to issue evacuations. Don't wait till the fireman's knocking on your door and you can't go look out your window because you can't see anything. When you hear the fire is an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours away, that's when you start planning. Okay, if I have to leave, where is everything? Locate it, lay it out. If you don't need it, you put it right back where you took it. It was a great practice run. So remember that, folks. Be safe, be careful. I don't know who else is going live today. Mad Shad does go live later in the evening. Shad, am I wrong? Is it like 6, 7 my time? I don't remember. Uh, I don't know. Hey, Magic, welcome. Um, I'm trying to remember who else. My mother Sparks sometimes does. I didn't see Lucky Dame today. I don't know if she jumped in or not. I know she's been working a lot of weekends. I don't think Hudson goes on. I don't think Vision goes on. He went on yesterday. I don't think Jason, the Angry Prepper, goes on until tomorrow. So anyway, folks, regardless, pop in. If I see someone going live, you all may want to see. I'll put it on my community tab, and that way you guys can kind of see the notice. I'll spread the word. Anyway, yeah, Shad's on at 7 on the Mad Shad channel. Shad, you could throw your link in there if you want. Okay, 300 is going live right after me or after Mad Shad. 300 is going live after somebody. And then, of course, we do need a prepper TV guide. I'm working on one. Unfortunately, it's become way more convoluted because you have like people like me who travel, and then have my little schedule, and then I have this random ass stuff pops out of nowhere, and everyone's like, "Surprise live!" But then I screw up my own algorithm, so we do. It's pretty rough. But anyway, oh, he's going live after. Oh no, we still don't know if he's going live after me or Mad Shad. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, 300 and Mad Chat are going live at some point between now and tomorrow. So keep an eye on their channel. Go put the notifications, all that good stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, be safe out there. Pay attention this week. You all be careful and travel safe. I will see you later. And if we do another clay shoot, I might get permission to do it live. They usually frown on that, but we'll see if we can. Well, no, I can't do that because then YouTube kicks me off. Twitch will let me do it, and so will Instagram and Facebook, but not the tube. So, oh well. Anyway, all right. You guys be good. Be safe. Hubert, God, Hubert will give people seizures if you didn't figure it out. Anyway, you guys be safe. Take care out there, and I will see y'all later.